Hello, hello, and welcome to another podcast episode of Overpowering Emotions, where I talk all things big emotions, emotion regulation, resilience, trauma, anxiety management. Today, I have a wonderful special guest joining me. We're going to be talking about parenting mindfully, very important topic. So, for ourselves and also to model for our own children. Katie Farinas, she's a mom, a seasoned nurse, a yoga teacher, and host of the podcast Mom on the Verge. Katie has been passionate about all things health and wellness from a young age. And after her own personal experiences and struggles, she was forced to examine the impact of our mental health and what that has on our physical health and how intimately those two things are connected. And so that was her journey towards becoming a yoga instructor and really being passionate about mental health. And so I'm so grateful to have her on the show today. I hope you enjoy. Well, Katie, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's great having you.
Oh, thank you so much, Caroline. Thank you for having me.
Why don't we start off with you telling us a little bit about yourself?
So, very surface level, I am a mom of two, a 15-year-old daughter and a 10-year-old son. I am a nurse. I've been a nurse for approaching 20 years now, 17, 18 years. Before that, I actually was a high school teacher. I am a yoga teacher, and I am a podcaster also. I have a podcast called Mom on the Verge.
Busy. Lots going on.
Busy. Yeah. Yeah.
So the age difference between your kids is similar. I've got a 17 and 13-year-old. So
okay. Yes. Yeah. I know a lot of people do it closer together. That was not going to work for me and my mental health.
I wanted to. I thought, let's get all the diapers and all the sleepless nights over in one shot. It just didn't work out that way. But
I know a lot of people feel the way you do. Yeah.
Yeah. But there's good and hardships probably with both. Yeah. So today we're going to be talking about how we can parent from a mindful place and be good role models for our kids, but just coming back to that place of, being the parent we want to be and being really mindful about it. So why don't we jump in? Where do we start?
Okay. Well, I guess I would start with my journey. So I became a parent at age 30. And it was a plan. I planned to have my daughter. But then I was fully and wholly unprepared for what it meant to become a parent. My daughter was a terrible sleeper. I had no idea. I always knew that I was the type of person who needed a lot of sleep, but it had never been a problem in the past. I always slept well and I prioritized my sleep and it wasn't a problem. But of course, you have a newborn, and my daughter was a terrible sleeper for many, many years. And all of a sudden you're thrust into this sleep deprivation. And for me, I have learned that sleep deprivation is a one-way highway to depression. So then I experienced postpartum depression for quite a while after having my daughter. I probably didn't come out of that for more than a year. And just all the demands that were placed on me as a parent. My husband worked a ton of hours. So he was always gone before my daughter woke up, and she was already in bed by the time he got home. So it was, I used to call it the mom show. It's always the mom show. Like it's mom, morning, noon, and night. And even when I'm not there, because I have to go to work, I'm the one organizing the babysitting and making sure that everything's left out the way it needs to be and answering all the questions and all that stuff. And I really stopped paying attention to myself completely. Like I just dove head first into this role as mom and just really forgot that I was a person outside of being a mom. And my daughter she had some issues when she was younger. So there was some stuff that we had to work on and help her through and that kind of thing. So that was even more time consuming. And then my son came along and, further we go down the mom path of forgetting about myself. And I had whispers. I had something inside of me that was saying I just don't feel fulfilled, or I feel taken advantage of, or I feel like I've lost myself. And I used to say that I could hear my intuition very loudly, and I would always follow my intuition. And I got to a point where I thought, I can't hear it anymore. Like, I feel like I've lost it. And I know in reality that it never goes away, but I just can't tap into it. And I think what happens is when we deny ourselves over and over and over again, we lose that ability to hear the quiet voice inside, which I always call our intuition a muscle. You have to flex the muscle in order to keep hearing it. And when you stop flexing the muscle atrophies, and it's not like the muscle's not there, it's just very weak and you can't tap into it easily. And, we deny ourselves as moms all the time in so many ways, right? It starts when they're babies, where we're sleep deprived, or we're so bored, we just can't even describe the level of boredom. Sometimes when you have young children and you're playing pretend all day, or whatever the case may be, we deny ourselves by not eating proper meals, and we're just eating off of our kids' plates because we're rushing. We deny ourselves by not taking time to do the things that we love because we say, I don't have time for that. Or we start saying, as our kids get older, yes to things we don't really want to do, right? Yes to being the class mom, or yes to helping out with this project, or when really it's a full body no. Like, our full body is saying to us no, and yet the words coming out of our mouth are yes. We deny ourselves when we, become resentful maybe of our partners, and because they're not helping in the way that we want them to. And instead of really sitting down and having that conversation and trying to make it work, we just trudge on and keep doing all the work that needs to be done at home, the laundry, the dishes, the cooking, the cleaning, all that stuff. So I think that we just continuously deny ourselves, and then we lose ourselves in the process. And I think anyone who becomes a mom recognizes that you're one person before you became a mom, and then you're another person after you become a mom. And the person that you were before you became a mom, that person is gone. It's becoming a mom is such a huge transformation. It changes you as a person. And there was a long time where I longed to be the old me. And I thought, oh, once my kids get older, I'll feel like myself again. Or once my kids get into full-time school, I'll feel like myself again. And I kept, pushing that off to a later date. I'm going to feel like myself again when. And then I finally realized that self is gone, but I don't know who this new self is because I haven't taken any time to get to know her. And in the process, actually, after I had my second child, I developed chronic migraine, which I have today till this day. And that also caused some pretty serious depression in my life. And then I had a daughter who went through some very serious mental health issues. So mental health has been a priority in our house for a long time. And I finally got to the point where I thought the only way for me to hear the right thing, to parent from a place of peace and calm, is to get to know myself again. Because I can't parent who I don't even know who's parenting, right? I don't even know what's important to me anymore, what the right answers are. And when my daughter went through all of her struggles, there's so many questions, so many impossible questions that you are asked to answer. And the only way I could answer them was by tapping into my intuition. So that is why I'm super passionate about moms coming home to themselves and finding out who they are, and just always learning how to return to the peace inside that is always there. It just gets covered up by a lot of other stuff.
Yeah, that really, and I think that'll resonate with so many people, even just for myself. I'm like, yes, yeah, I don't know. Even just the other day, I caught myself waiting around for my kids, not doing something that I wanted to do in case they needed me or wanted to hang out, especially my oldest. She's in grade 12 now, and I don't know if I'm going to see her after this year. So I'm just, holding on to those. But my husband, it's too bad he's not here. We were always talking about who were we before our kids. I don't remember. Like, we used to go and hang out and we would do all these things. And now our date night is Costco, if we go on a date night ever. Yes. And if it is, that's where it is, So I think so many people can really resonate with that. Powerful. So how do we get there?
How do we get there? So it's a process. Getting there is not something that happens overnight. So for me, it was a process that was, I didn't really have much of a choice. I had hit such a low with my chronic migraine disorder that I really I got to a point where I didn't think I wanted to live anymore. And then I thought, well, I can't do that. I have two small children. My children were like 6 and 1 at the time. But I don't know what to do. And I had tried many different medications and, I've been to many different doctors and nothing was helping. And I heard my intuition. So I think I was at such a low that my intuition was like screaming at me now at this point. And it said to me, go to yoga. And so I did. And I didn't know I was there and I couldn't do most of the entire class because I was in too much pain, but I would just lay on the mat. I would do the beginning meditation. I would do the ending meditation. I would listen to the Dharma talk. I would do any like gentle stretches that were at the beginning or at the end. But for a lot of the time, I actually just laid there and breathed. I laid there and I breathed. And what I noticed is when I would come out, I felt better than when I went in. And I don't mean physically better. Yes, I may have felt also physically better, but my soul felt better. I felt more spacious. I felt calmer. I felt more hopeful. I felt more peaceful. And I thought, I don't know what this is. I don't know what's going on, but I'm just going to keep doing this because something inside of me is telling me to keep doing this. And then gradually over time, and I mean a lot of time, so this is many, many years later, I became very into yoga. I became a yoga teacher. I have a very serious meditation practice. I'm actually in 2024 become certified in breath work. So it's been like a little at a time, which is what I try to encourage people on my podcast to do. It can seem really overwhelming, but really what I did was one simple thing that I encourage people to do in all areas of their life is let yourself be led by curiosity. That's it. If you're curious about something, try it out. And if you're curious about meditation, try it. There's, free meditation apps. There's stuff on YouTube. You can go to your local yoga studio. I mean, there's so many different ways to come at it. But if you're curious about it, try it and see how you feel. Don't do something because somebody in the wellness industry says that you should, because what works for one person doesn't always work for the other person. So my whole journey was a step-by-step of, okay, I hear this voice, go to yoga. I go to yoga. Oh, actually, I feel better. Well, during yoga, there's some period of meditation. I'd like to do that a little bit longer. Let me try this out. Oh, okay, let's see. I don't really love mantra meditation, but I really love to focus on my breath. Or I'm not super into visualization, but I really love a walking meditation. And so it's like being a child again. It's like returning to that childlike curiosity and lack of judgment, and just no outcome is required. No outcome. You are just doing it because you want to see how it feels to do it, right? I mean, when you look at young children play, and so many young children love water. I don't know there's any young child that doesn't love to play with water. And they just like pick, the water table. That was a huge toy in our house, where they have the table and they can be outside with the water, and they have things that spin and they have things that float, and the child just like picks it up and watches and pours, and they stick their hand in it and they try to do all different things with the water. Sheer curiosity, right? That's all they're doing. They're just playing for the sake of play and for the curiosity of what will happen if I do this. And that is my encouragement to people when they're starting on this path where they say, I want to come home to myself, but I don't really even know what that looks like. I say, get curious. What's that thing that just keeps coming back over and over and over again? It keeps like, that might be fun, or that might be interesting, or I'm curious about that. What is that thing that keeps coming back to you? Do it. Go do it. And you might do it and go, oh no, I thought I wanted to do that, but no, that is not for me. Or you might do it and really love it and then want to go further and further. So, I mentioned I'm getting certified in breathwork in 2024. I didn't even really learn about the levels of breath work that I'm learning about now until probably the last 2 years. And I've been on this journey for almost 15 now. So I just think that we have to be led by our curiosity and not care what anybody else thinks about what we're doing, not even ourselves, and just go for it. Just do it and see what happens.
Mhm. Good for us and good for our kids too, right? Just
Yeah.
that modeling of being able to take care of ourselves and pursue our interests. And, you said those little bits, bit by bits.
Mhm.
That's so important because I think we get sucked into, I'm already so busy. I'm already have no time. I already, we all have
Yes.
these excuses, but it's just those little snippets. It's just my kids, we put a little tiny bit of money away every month just from their allowance, right? I'm just teaching them money management. It's not a lot of money, but they've
Right.
been doing it for years and years and years. It's money they don't even pay attention to. And now they look at their savings and they're like, wow, that's how
Yes.
much I've got. I
Yes.
remember, I don't think it's this way anymore, but I remember in high school, they said, if you just put $25 a month away into your RSP, I think it's what is it? 501 plan? Or no,
Um,
that's IPP stuff. That's a
there's usually we have
504. Where you put
yes, I
money
know what you're
away for
talking about. Yeah.
retirement savings, right? You
Yes.
put it
Yes.
away. I can't remember what it's in the States, but you'll have $1 million by the time
Right.
but it's just
Yes.
those little moments. And so maybe you want to
Yes.
do, well, actually, I've got a dance exercise class in my head just because another mom was telling me about it the other
Yeah.
day. She was going with her husband. Maybe you just find a YouTube video for 2 minutes and
Yes.
try it. It's not about finding an hour and getting childcare and going and, it's just
Hmm.
doing that and trying it and see if you like it. There's
Yes.
ways, in today's day and age, you can YouTube anything
You
and
can. You can.
get a little taste of it.
Yeah, you absolutely can. And the thing is about mindfulness in general, like mindfulness practices is, there's two different avenues here. There's like mindfulness practices like journaling and meditation and breath work and yoga and all that stuff. And then there's engaging in the activities that just simply bring you joy. But those activities also put you in what's called a flow state. And a flow state is a form of meditation. So if you're doing something that you really enjoy and you are kind of losing track of time and not really paying any attention to anything other than that thing that you're doing, you're in a flow state and you are meditating. So there's two ways at coming at this for those people who are like, I cannot sit down and sit there and close my eyes and breathe. I just can't do it. It's not in me. It's not part of my DNA. That's okay. You don't have to do it. You can be in a flow state doing dishes. You can be in a flow state vacuuming. As long as you are fully and completely present with the thing that you are doing. And I tell people to tap into their five senses, which I think is a thing that's also used in therapy a lot. My daughter's been through a lot of therapy, so I know a lot about that route as well. But tapping into your senses. So if you're washing the dishes, which is something that we all have to do, it's just part of our life, we can do that with really great music on. And we can be really listening to that music, singing. We can be feeling the water on our hands, smelling the scent of the soap, hearing the cling clang of the dishes as you wash them. You can be tapping into all those senses in whatever feels best to you. And you are meditating. You're meditating while you're doing your dishes. And so you can either stand there and do your dishes and be like, I hate doing these dishes. Why isn't my husband doing the dishes? This is so boring. I hate it. How many dishes are there? Or you can like jam on your music and dance, do a little dance at the sink while you're doing it. And, just really tap in to the joy because there's joy everywhere all around us all the time if we choose to place our attention there.
Right. And that's such an important point. We can just do the mindfulness piece in the things that we're already doing,
Yeah.
right? And just being aware, because this is where life is, right? We spend so much time in the past worrying about things that we've done or about the future to come, but that's not life. Life is here in this moment. One thing I always tell people, it's hard, yes, to think about it, to remind yourself to create these routines, but it's also hard to be in pain and to be sad and to be stressed and to, be dysregulated with our children and. So you got to choose your heart, right? And so which one do you want to kind of focus on? But it's making that commitment. But I think finding your why would this be important?
Yeah.
And it sounded like for you, it sounded like, I mean, the pain piece, just life was slipping through your fingers, literally, but your kids kind of pulled you back. And whatever that why is for us, we need to be able to pull that back.
And I would say, like, yes, both are hard. but one feels good and the other one
Yes.
doesn't.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't we turn towards the one that feels good, even though it is still hard? And it becomes easier. Again, that muscle, like mindfulness is also a muscle. Like all of these things are muscles that we build over time. So yes, in the beginning, it may feel like you're, climbing uphill with a 60-pound pack on your back, but that does become so much easier. And what people will begin to notice is that if I take 5 minutes to meditate in the morning, or another great one is looking up at the sky. If I take 5 minutes to look up at the sky, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, my whole body will feel so much better. I will actually feel more spacious and calm. My nervous system will relax. I will feel like I can take on the world. I will feel like I can answer questions more easily. Your kids are always like, mom, 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 mom. You're like, you'll be like, okay, honey. Like it changes the way you feel in your body and your mind. And it feels really good. And that feeling good becomes the incentive to keep doing it versus, you keep maybe being dysregulated with your children or your partner or at work or whatever it is. And that just feels worse and worse and worse, because not only does feeling that way not feel good, but then we layer shame and guilt on top of it because maybe we snapped at our kids or we had an argument with someone at work or whatever the case may be. And that now is an added layer of not feeling good to the process.
Right. And so I think a piece here that we need to mention is having conscious awareness of it feeling good to reinforce to our brain, hey, this is worthwhile. Because sometimes I find we just go through the motions. I was my 5-minute meditation, but we're not actually consciously, we're just going through the motions. So we're still in autopilot. We're not necessarily mindful. But then even if we were, we just quickly shut it down, not thinking about everything that you said. I feel more expanded. I feel more grounded. I feel more connected. I feel more hopeful, or whatever that is. So bringing conscious awareness to it. So that's probably the tricky piece, is just remembering. I think we all have good intentions. So great. Today I'm going to focus on being present as I wash dishes, but then life makes us forget. Any tips for just keeping it at the forefront of our mind to remember to do these things?
Well, I think there would be like multiple things I'd want to say to that. Like the first piece would be releasing expectation. So if you're doing these things because you want a certain outcome, then you're almost sabotaging the experience itself, because every day I sit down to meditate, and some days I come out of that meditation like feeling fantastic. I feel super grounded and peaceful and, zen. And other days that monkey mind is just on fire. That monkey, I don't know what it ate, but it is like bouncing off the walls in my head. But that's okay, because every day is a different day. And if you sit without expectation, or whatever it is that you do, I'm saying meditation as an example, but if you do whatever you do without expectation, you will find, if you are aware, like you said, if you're paying attention, you're being aware, that whether it's a day where I feel like, oh, wow, that was a wonderful meditation, I was able to really get so deep, or if it's a day where I'm like, wow, there is a lot going on. The crazy neighbor upstairs is another like term I use for my brain, the crazy neighbor upstairs. Like that crazy neighbor is like really up to a lot today. I still feel better. Either day, I feel better. So release the expectation of what you think it should be, or what it is. If it's effective, it'll be like this. Or if I do this, I will feel like this. You just do it. You just do the thing because you want to do the thing, and you experience the thing, whatever it is, without judgment, and with curiosity, and with just a letting. I call it a letting, like just let it be what it is. Mm-hmm. So that's the first thing I want to say.
Can I just remember? Just to jump in with one thing, and I'm glad that you said that. I've actually stopped giving breath work and relaxation strategies when I work with anxious families, just because they get it in their head. I did all these strategies and I still feel anxious, because there is that expectation. If I breathe, I should feel calm. If I do my relaxation, I should feel calmer. And so then, they're just reinforcing this narrative. I'll always be like this. And so that's why I actually don't ever use any of those strategies. I'll use them as a overall arousal decrease, space. You know, we use them proactively, but in the height of stress and anxiety, I've actually stopped giving them those strategies just because we get caught in, I don't feel better, nothing's working, and then they feel hopeless. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. That being in the present moment is something that's so simple, but so hard. And that's really what we're talking about, right? So if we're talking about doing these strategies without expectation, we're talking about just 100% being comfortable with whatever the present moment hands you. And maybe it hands you a lot of anxiety, or maybe it hands you fear, or maybe it hands you pain. And being okay with what is really what we're talking about, whatever it is. And sometimes that's going to be a preferred emotion or experience. And sometimes it's going to be what I call the not preferred experience or emotion. But just because it's not your preferred experience or emotion doesn't mean that it's bad. It just means that it is. And so we talk a lot about that in yoga, that, everything is neutral, which when I first heard that, I was like, no, I do not buy that. So I can hear when people, I know how I was when I first started learning all this stuff. So I know people are like, are you kidding me? Like, a chronic pain condition is not neutral. It's bad. But I have a chronic pain condition. Would I prefer to not have one? Sure. Who wouldn't prefer to not have one? But it's only bad because when I label it as such, it's really neutral. Yeah. And our minds tell us what's good or bad based on previous experiences, what the culture tells us, all different reasons why we label things as good or bad. But I can also tell you that this condition has been a tremendous gift to my life. And I would not be here doing what I'm doing if I didn't have it. So take with that what you will, but we have to remember that all things in life are neutral, and we assign them as good or bad. And if we can keep remembering that, we can keep coming back to all the good that comes out of the things that we maybe don't prefer. Yeah. So that was that. Now, how do you remember to keep coming back? Woo! That is, that's a hard question, honestly. I think what I usually recommend for people is that they start doing these practices, whatever it is, whether it be a traditional, what you think of as a mindfulness practice like meditation or breathing or yoga, in a container that is calm and quiet and peaceful on its own. Because you can't expect in the heat of the moment to be a novice at these things and then just whip it out and use it right when you just feel super triggered, right? You will fail. Okay. It's an unrealistic expectation for anyone to do. So what we talk about in yoga is that the mat is where you practice yoga, so to speak. So when I say that, I don't mean you're practicing the poses. Yes, of course you're in there, you're practicing the poses, but yoga is about 5% or less about the poses, the shapes that you make on the mat, and about 95 to 98% about the philosophy behind it, the mindfulness practice and all the yogic philosophy behind it. So what you do when you come into a yoga studio is that you practice present moment awareness, you practice breath, you practice being calm in those really difficult poses when maybe you're like, this is, my muscles are on fire, or I can't hold this any longer. You practice the peace inside during that part. You practice non-judgment because you know what, one day I can do this particular pose and the next day I can't, or my neighbor is like standing on their hands and I can't get out of hands and knees. Okay. Right. So you practice all these things, but you practice them in a container that is calm and peaceful and supportive and loving and all of those things, so that hopefully over time you can carry that out into the chaos of the world. So my recommendation to people would be, don't expect this to work in the chaos right away. It will over time, but in the beginning, find that space, that place in your life, that time to practice it when you are calm. And gradually you will be able to pull it out when you are not calm. You will be able to return to a state of calm. You'll get that space, which I'm sure you're very familiar with as a therapist, that, that trigger and then the reaction, like there's that little space in between, right? So somebody does something to you, and when you are reactive, you might, let's say you're driving and someone cuts you off, and you react and you honk your horn and you're driving up right behind them and you're just yelling, versus someone does something to you. There's a little space where you take a breath, you recognize, you feel your body, you recognize all the bad, uncomfortable things that are happening in your body, and then you decide to respond. How am I going to respond? And a response is a thoughtful response, or I don't know a better word for it, to what just happened, versus a reaction is like what I call a knee-jerk reaction. You're not even really controlling it. It's like a muscle spasm. It just happens without you thinking about the consequences of that reaction. So gradually you'll be able to see, if you practice these things in that peaceful setting first, you will start to notice that space in between trigger and response starts getting like a little bit longer, just like a little bit longer and a little bit longer, until you are really developing some beautiful self-awareness around what really gets to you and how you can most thoughtfully respond to what gets to you.
Which I think we all need to practice in all areas of our life, especially with our children. And if we're modeling that, it'll be easier for them to learn those things as well. Well, thank you so much. I think there's so many beautiful gems in here. I think there's lots of different directions we could talk for hours about, but I think, starting small and making it successful for ourselves is important, right? Just create those small successes. So thank you so much. Yes. I do have all of your information that I will put up in the show notes. Where would the best place be for people to get in touch if they want to follow you?
Yes, they can follow my podcast, which is called Mom on the Verge. It's on all major podcasting platforms. My Instagram is Katie Mom and Yogi. My Facebook is just Katie Farinas. And in the bio of each of those social media outlets, I have a freebie, like a mindfulness freebie for people. And my email is momonthevergepodcast@gmail.com.
Okay, fantastic. Right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Right. Thank you. Appreciate it. Have a good day.
You as well.
Bye-bye.
All Perfect. Thank you so much. I think, I don't know for Overpowering Emotions when this will come on. I'm thinking I might start a series in the new year I've had quite a few guests on talking about kind of adult stuff. So I'm thinking of having a piece around parents supporting themselves and their own well-being to be able to co-regulate and support their children. So I think I'm having a series then. So that's probably when I'm looking, is at the beginning of the year sometime. For the parents of the year, I have no idea. It might come around the same time. It might be a completely different time, but either way, I will let you know when they'll be out.
Great. And I will promote it on my socials.
Perfect. Thanks so much. It was great meeting you.
You too.
Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.